And welcome back. You are tuned into Vision of Asia, bringing you prime South Asian highlights from all across. Concluding the show tonight, we now have an exclusive coverage coming in from India on the upcoming elections. Due in May of 2019, the general elections will constitute the 17th Lok Sabha of the Indian Parliament, hence for providing the next ruling party for the Indian government for the next 4 years. With an eligible voting population of over 850 million voters, this upcoming election aims to produce another strong democratic exercise next year. During this process, while the nation of India, along with this NRI community all across the world, is preparing for these elections, much has been spoken about the process and path of the upcoming elections, especially on the Indian Election Commission, which is responsible for an ethical and true conduct of voting for these elections. The Election Commission of India is now gearing up for India's most anticipated elections, with many changes made to the system. ITV Gold's India's chief correspondent Anand Velayudhan brings us the story exclusively from India.
The word Juggernaut traces its etymological origins to the chariot of Jagannath Puri temple in India. Like the unstoppable chariot believed to have crushed devotees as it rolled forward, the Indian general election has quite the similar effect. It serves crushing ruthless defeat on unsuspecting incumbents. Confidential sources have confirmed to ITV that the Indian Election Commission is gearing itself, as the government seems inclined to hold the general election in the May of 2019. The Indian general election is a colossal event in itself and remains globally unparalleled in size and scope. Preparations begin over a year ahead, with officers and staff drafted from various departments of state and federal governments. Teachers too are oftentimes summoned. None of those called upon to serve the election commission are allowed to refuse unless suffering from overarching health conditions. Negligence or failure to be present attracts severe punishments, and in the past have led to penalties, dismissal, and imprisonments too. Already, a returning officer in Mumbai is reported to have filed a police complaint against municipal ward officers who have refused to comply. The controversial electronic voting machine, or EVMs, have reportedly been revamped and fresh contracts awarded to Electronics Corporation of India Limited. While the previous EVM procurements were from Bharat Electronics Limited, a public sector unit under Ministry of Defence, the new awardee is a Government of India enterprise under the DAE, that is the Department of Atomic Energy. The importance accorded to EVMs reflect here, since the DAE falls within the direct control of the Prime Minister. Another fresh feature is an electronic receipt. The new EVM, it is claimed, spews out receipt after every casted vote. However, it is not clear if the receipts would mention the candidates selected by the voter. Stakeholders have been curious to understand the purpose of receipts if it does not verify the choice of candidates. Despite arguable inadequacies, the Indian general election promises to be a spectacle. With an electoral roll of over 834 million people as of 2014, a sea of humanity would flow into roughly 6.8 million voting booths during general elections to select a mere 543 candidates to the lower house of parliament. While the numbers bewilder, it does raise questions of adequate representation. Wonder if it were time that the Indian Parliament, at least the lower house, was expanded. Now, despite its inherent nature, last election saw a 66% turnout, suggesting that about 500 million people actually voted, matching, if not surpassing in number, the combined voters in Europe and North America. The government of India spent about $500 million in 2014. Interestingly, the candidates spent an estimated $5 billion in campaign expenditure, while the Election Commission restricts their combined expenditure to about $100 million. This stark mismatch probably talks of the unaccounted wealth in India. The current Prime Minister portrayed much promise in fighting black money, as it is called, a major convergence point for reformers like himself. Among the slew of measures to contain the so-called underground economy, Prime Minister has proposed simultaneous state and federal elections. Now, while that debate rages on, this time round the general election would most certainly be held alone. Maharashtra, due for elections in October, could be joining in, but no confirmations on that yet. ITV is the first to bring out tentative dates for the general elections in India. Stay tuned for more on the Indian juggernaut.